Hi, everybody.
Okay, so we're going to welcome Karen Kirkwood-Whyte, and Karen is going to let us know how Rotary was when she became a member. Sorry.
That's fine. I don't know whether I can do two things at once, but we'll see. Before I begin, I'd just like to say thanks to those who wore purple today. For those of you who don't know, that every October, the Children's Aid Societies across Ontario raise awareness about the important role that individuals and communities play in supporting vulnerable children. And it's through this Dress Purple Day that we can say that it's more important than ever, given COVID, that we need to think about children and families. So thank you for wearing purple. And some of you have a little bit of purple in your shirt. So when I was asked to present to the club today as part of our 100th anniversary celebrations, I debated about whether to re-deliver my classification talk, which was 30 years ago on January 14th, 1992. Or my president's inaugural address, which was 21 years ago, which was July the 15th, 2000. So what I decided to do was to provide some excerpts from each of the two. And if I get a little long-winded and you have to leave, I understand. Many decades ago, when contemplating what I wanted to do with my life, I never dreamed that one day I would be chief executive officer of one of the largest charitable organizations in my home community. All through high school, I had various vocations in mind. For a time, I wanted to be a hairdresser. For another time, I wanted to be an airline stewardess. I also wanted to be a lab technologist. For a short time too, during a spiritual search, I thought I wanted to be a nun. I think it was the uniform that intrigued me. Looking back at all those dreams that I had as a young child and preparing for my classification talk, I recognize how close I actually came to realizing some of those dreams. For those of you who know me, you will know that my husband and I once owned the First Choice Haircutters franchise, 7 stores in total, 1 in Leamington, 1 in Tecumseh, and 5 in Windsor. That business took us on numerous visits to other areas of the continent, often by plane, to visit other franchisees and to compare notes on managing our business. My dream of becoming a lab technologist did not come true, but my granddaughter, who is currently in grade 12, recently announced that she'd like to become a chemical engineer. So that's about as close as I think I'll get to that particular profession. And over the past number of years, I've enjoyed my time serving on the finance committee for the Ursuline sisters, although habits are a thing of the past. Upon graduating from Windsor Business College in 1966, I worked as a secretary bookkeeper at Curtis Printing Company. I moved to Thunder Bay in the 1970s and held several positions there, with Lakehead University in the Department of Continuing Education, with the Thunder Bay Parks and Recreation Department, and with the Thunder Bay District Health Council prior to returning to Southwestern Ontario. When I arrived in Chatham in 1979, I worked for a short time at Queen Mary Public School, where Integris is located now, and John McGregor Secondary School, right over there. My introduction to the nonprofit sector in Chatham came as a result of my volunteer involvement with the Canadian Mental Health Association. As a volunteer member of the board of directors of CMHA, I was made aware of a secretarial vacancy on staff and resigned as a board member to take the paid position. As a member of the staff of one of United Way's member agencies, I was asked to canvass during the fall campaign and was quickly introduced to the field of fundraising. The Canadian Mental Health Association office was eventually housed in the same William Street building with the United Way, which is now home to the Montessori School next to the Chatham Cultural Center. When the then executive director of United Way, Doris Wagner, resigned her position in January of 1983, I was approached by John Sigurd Johnson to apply for the position. The offer intrigued me. I was to serve as executive director and secretary to the United Way Board of Directors and support the efforts of the campaign chairperson in organizing the fall campaign. The leading, directing, and coaching of staff was new to me, but I would soon learn about the very two different sides of my new vocation, the charitable, altruistic side and the firmer business side. Working for a nonprofit organization is quite different than working for a for-profit organization. Although they are businesses in every sense of the word, there are some major differences. In a for-profit organization, the products are tangible and quality is apparent. In a nonprofit, service volume is measured, but outcomes are intangible and may take years to realize. Quality is extremely difficult to measure. As far as public relations go, for-profits consider this a legitimate cost of marketing, and they utilize professional employees or consultants and spend considerable sums of money on advertising budgets. Very few nonprofits have public relations staff or budgets, and these responsibilities often fall to the manager as an added responsibility. Entertaining and travel are accepted practices to enhance business opportunities for for-profit organizations, but in nonprofits, entertaining and travel are discouraged by funders. In for-profit organizations, pay levels are generally higher, not subject to public scrutiny, and widely ranging benefits are offered. The same is not true in most nonprofits. So why would I want to work for a nonprofit organization? Believe me, I asked myself that question many a time. Why, when it's so difficult to market the product we are selling? Why, when we have to constantly deal with public scrutiny concerning our expenditures? Why, when we have to make do with hand-me-downs and beg, borrow, and beg again for equipment, furnishings, and office supplies needed to do our work? Why, when you know that nothing you have done or said can demystify a false perception? Why, when there is so much competition for the charitable dollar? Why? I'll tell you why. I remember a visit to a nursing home in Bothwell in my second year as executive director. A visit that I would consciously recall when I had some of those previously mentioned misgivings. That afternoon, on a routine visit to take a few photographs of some recipients of service for an upcoming campaign pamphlet, I had the pleasure of sitting and chatting with an elderly resident who remembered the days of Red Feather and what that symbol stood for. That lady knew that the symbol stood for people helping people. And although the name of our organization has changed many times since Red Feather, Community Chest from the Monopoly game, Community Fund, and United Appeal, the meaning is still there. That elderly lady took me by the hand that afternoon. She patted it gently and she said, "Keep up the great work, honey." And no matter how tense my job got at times, that visit was the thing that kept me focused. I often have told people that working for United Way was one of the most challenging yet rewarding jobs I had ever had. Nowhere else could I work a 40 to 60-hour week and not feel completely stressed out, do my part to make people feel good about themselves, get to know people from all sectors of the community, meet and work with government officials, CEOs, and community leaders, benefit from opportunities to further my education and personal and professional growth through affiliation with national, provincial, and local associations, play the role of promoter, counselor, author, researcher, and try my hand at public speaking, teaching, interior decorating, truck driving, float making, and waitressing. In that role, I have been a plumber, an electrician, a furniture mover, a little red mascot, a cook, and a bottle washer, and a dunk tankee. I had to smile when I really didn't want to, and I often had to bite my tongue. But you know, it was a great job. And for all the situations that the organization has been through, growing from an organization raising $50,000 in 1948 to over $2 million during my tenure, and providing a hand up to thousands of Chatham Kent residents on an annual basis. In the 8 years that followed my classification talk, I served in many positions on the Rotary Executive, alongside several fellow Rotarians who sadly are no longer with us. One of my most memorable roles was as Sergeant at Arms. During that term, I was presented with a hard hat. I believe it was meant to protect me from the numerous barbs that were frequently thrown my way, just to see how I would react. Then in 2000, I accepted the chain of office from President Ralph Robinson and officially began my term as Rotary President. My inaugural address was given on July 15th of 2000, and its title was Coping with Change. I provided an opportunity for members of the club to practice change that day and handed out a piece of paper similar to the ones that I distributed today. On that paper is a request for you to fill in the blanks with your name, your favorite color, your astrological sign, or your birth date if you don't know that, your birth order, oldest, youngest, only, or middle, one thing that you're particularly good at, and one hobby that you enjoy. At the conclusion of that luncheon, and today as well, the idea was to collect them and throughout the year, have some fun. A number of my fellow Rotarians gave me advice about what to include in my inaugural address. As an example, Eddie Mariconda told me to throw away any speeches I had prepared, take 2 stiff shots of whiskey exactly an hour before my talk, and just let come out what would come out. What Eddie didn't know was that there would have been an empty podium if I'd followed his suggestion. As the first female member and first female president, I was compelled to do something unique. So the format of my inaugural address included a bit about what life used to be like back when I was a kid, a picture of what life looked like in 2000 to illustrate just how much change we had experienced since our childhood days, some tips to cope or embrace change, how the subject applies to Rotary, and lastly, how during my term as president, we could address some of the challenges we are facing and work together to overcome them. And here are a few of the points illustrating what life used to be like back some 60 years ago when we were carefree kids. Think back to a time when mistakes were corrected by simply exclaiming, "do over." Race issue meant arguing about who ran the fastest. Money issues were handled by whoever was the banker in Monopoly. Being old referred to anyone over 20. The worst thing that you could catch from the opposite sex was cooties. It was magic when Dad would remove his thumb. Having a weapon in school meant being caught with a slingshot. Scrapes and bruises were kissed and made better. Abilities were discovered because of a double dog dare. Ollie ollie oxen free made perfect sense. Baseball cards in the spokes transformed any bike into a motorcycle. Taking drugs meant orange flavored chewable aspirin. And ice cream was considered a basic food group. Then I asked everyone to open their eyes to the reality of life today. And as I read the following list, you can close your eyes if you want to here. Think about just how much has changed in the last 21 years. We have bigger houses and smaller families, more conveniences, but less time. We have more degrees, but less sense, more knowledge, but less judgment, more experts, but more problems, more medicine, but less wellness. We drink too much, smoke too much, spend too recklessly, laugh too little, drive too fast, get too angry too quickly, stay up too late, get up too tired, read too seldom, watch TV too much, too seldom. We've learned how to make a living, not a life. We've added years to life, not life to years. We've been all the way to the moon and Mars and back, but have trouble crossing the street to meet the new neighbor. We've learned to rush, but not to wait. We have higher incomes, but lower morals, more food, but less appeasement, more acquaintances, but fewer true friends, more efforts, but less success. These are the times of fast foods and slow digestion, tall men and short character, steep profits and shallow relationships. These are the times of world peace, but domestic warfare. More leisure and less fun, more kinds of food, but less nutrition. Closer to home, upper management and companies no longer encourage their management employees to belong to a service club, as they did in the 70s and early 80s. Small business owners have little time to devote to the community. The competitive market is a real challenge for them, and the big box stores are putting them out of business. Today, with both parents and a family working, there is little spare time. The pressures of work and the commitment to a company leave little time for public service duties. The new mandate of lifelong learning takes up a great deal of one's spare time. Look at service clubs all around us. They are all in the same boat, struggling to retain membership. New members are harder to find, and many are reluctant to even consider it. I believe that by now we have all come to the conclusion that change is inevitable. And sometimes it is really frightening just how much more change might come before we depart this world. More importantly, how do we cope or embrace this thing called change? Change is about mapping out your life with a pencil and always carrying an eraser. It's about recognizing that shift happens. Change is about being open-minded and willing to learn to another person's viewpoint. Change builds character. In his address at the Buenos Aires Convention, outgoing President Carlo Ravizza noted that achieving and maintaining consistency, credibility, and continuity, the theme for his year, required courage, the courage to change. He said that many Rotarians welcome change. In fact, they are calling for it as an essential step in reversing our membership decline. Some perhaps may want Rotary to change too quickly, yet at the other end of the spectrum, we have many Rotarians who are locked into decades-old traditions that have little relevance in today's world. The international theme in the year 2000, introduced by International President Frank Devlin, was Create Awareness, Take Action. This theme, simple yet powerful, was our mission to embrace change. It would guide our efforts in all that we were about to do. In reality, we have the answers to coping with change right here in Rotary. They are the object of Rotary, the four-way test, and the 4 avenues of service. For me, back then as well as today, change has become an opportunity for me to discover new things about myself and about others, and how when we come together and we really listen to each other, we discover that we all want basically the same things: peace, understanding, good health, friends, love, and the list goes on. And then I provided a few tips that I picked up along the way for coping with change. Surround yourself with people who know more about things than you do. Then allow them the freedom to express their own creativity. You'll never get bored, and you'll be rewarded with enthusiasm, passion for the work, and grateful appreciation for the opportunity to grow. When someone tells you to slow down, listen to them. Believe that they are telling you that because they love you and do have your best interests at heart. Recognize your limitations. The world will provide you with every imaginable obstacle, but the one most difficult to overcome will be the lack of faith in yourself. If you do that, you can do just about anything. Carry a notebook or put one in the drawer of your night table. You'll be surprised just how many profound thoughts you'll have at 3 o'clock in the morning and need some place to write them down. Writing things down is the first step in being organized, and of course, reminding yourself to do things. And it feels really good when you have a whole page of check marks. Don't be afraid to try new things that might even scare the hell out of you. Not only will it help you to overcome major challenges in life, it's a whole lot easier than spending your life wishing that you've done something and feeling disappointed in yourself for never having tried. Try to look at every challenge as an opportunity and always try to look at the big picture. We have a tremendous opportunity with our new municipal restructuring process in the aftermath of municipal amalgamation to embrace the change with which we have been faced and to develop it to its fullest potential. Read. Read fiction and nonfiction. Read newspapers and periodicals. Visit Turns and Tales. Surf the net. Watch documentaries and the History Channel. Go to movies, good ones and bad ones. Communicate. Send emails to faraway places. Adopt a habit of lifelong learning. Keep busy. Exercise. Have a weekly or at least a monthly massage. Take up a hobby, a winter one as well as a summer one. Boredom and guilt are the two biggest wasters of precious time. So don't let either one of them consume you. Wherever you are, be there. As tough as it is sometimes, try to give those that need your attention the attention they deserve. Do what you love, and the rewards are endless. This tip is the best one because this one can open doors that you didn't even know were there. Find a cause, something you can believe in and get behind. And there are parts in this world and parts of this community that are in a lot of trouble. Don't sit on the sidelines wishing that things would change. Do your part and try to make a difference. And then I highlighted a number of lessons from my personal life that have helped me to cope with change. One of my first lessons came from my Aunt Nan, my mom's older sister in Halifax, Nova Scotia, a person whom I admired for her strength of character, fearless determination, and no-nonsense advice. I remember telling her as a soon-to-be teenager that I hoped I would never make a mistake. And she said, "Oh, honey, I hope not. If you don't, you'll never grow as a person." So I've taken her advice. I've made lots of mistakes. And of course, I've tried to learn the important lessons from each one. One of the important lessons I learned was from my dad. I never really paid much attention when he first said it to me back when I was 16, but go slow and don't get yourself into anything that you can't get yourself out of gracefully. That has saved my bacon on a number of occasions. Another lesson had to do with the building of self-confidence. At a conference in Phoenix, Arizona in the mid-70s, a lady Texan told her audience of executive secretaries, "Fake it till you make it." My favorite boss was a fellow by the name of Dr. John Hart, who was the Dean of Continuing Education at Lakehead University in Thunder Bay. I once asked him if he would okay my attendance at a secretarial seminar. His reply to me was, "Of course you can go, but you won't learn anything I can't teach you." On my very first day on the job, he wrote RSVP in the right-hand corner of a piece of correspondence that I had placed in his in basket. And I've been putting words in other people's mouths ever since. And finally, the lessons I learned as the first female Rotarian are words of wisdom that I believe keep me focused in the work of people helping people. And that is the Rotary four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? During my term of office, our executive team developed 5 broad goals around leadership, internal education, external marketing and promotion, partnerships and alliances, and fun and fellowship. Time today does not permit me to elaborate, as I did that day, on these 5 broad goals, but the last of the 5 goals was designed to celebrate the unique contributions of each member of the club. Thus, the distribution of the forms today. We were hoping to build on the current and highly successful classification talk by exposing the talents and skills of each and every member of the club. Over these past 30 years of membership, I have become quite attached to this club and to many of its members. But there is one person to whom I owe a great deal of gratitude, and that is Keith Koch. Keith was the one who, in spite of some significant reluctance to change over several years, I understand, introduced me as the first female member of the Rotary Club of Chatham. He was a trailblazer. He took a giant leap, and he challenged some conventional wisdom. That year, in 2000, it was my pleasure to serve a gentleman who was not only my Rotary sponsor, but our district governor as well. Some highlights of my year as Rotary president included a trip to San Antonio to attend the International Convention, an opportunity to play Minnie Pearl alongside Charlie Farquharson at the Rotary banquet, and dismantling the past president's table at the weekly Rotary meetings to encourage more mingling with the membership. Change is okay. In fact, change can be fun, creative, and very rewarding. I encourage each of you to embrace change and to let your minds be open to it. I concluded my inaugural address that day with a little memento and a recipe for embracing change, as shared by a fellow Rotarian on the internet. And as I suggested to Rick Briscoe, our song leader, he could sing it to the tune of Mambo No. 5. A little more kindness and a little less creed, a little more giving and a little less greed, a little more smile and a little less frown, a little less kicking a man when he's down, a little more we and a little less I, a little more laugh and a little less cry, a few more flowers on the pathway of life, and fewer on graves at the end of our strife. And remember, shift happens. Lead your life so you won't be ashamed to sell the family parrot to the town gossip. Amen.
Now it's our chance of any questions.
Please,
Andy?
please take a look at the scrapbook that I threw together yesterday afternoon, just because in my travels yesterday, in going through boxes and boxes and boxes of old newspaper clippings, I have Charlie Farquharson's original speech. I actually have his actual notes that he gave at that banquet. So
I'm going to ask Tom Story if he'll thank our speaker, please.
I have a comment about some of the changes and you mentioned the I guess it's the percentage of people that are, if it's an industry, people get higher paid and people know what the salary is, whereas in volunteer work or that sort of thing, you don't. But I see a big difference today because some organizations will tell you how much it spends to run the organization, and even in Rotary we have a disclosure thing, and some of the ads we get on television, the ads are for things that are the people, we know the people that are running these organizations are obviously getting paid a lot more than is collected.
you're absolutely right, Andy. Things have changed in the last 21 years for the better in some cases. Yes.
Okay. Oh, yes, we have all our, hi, Barry. I see you stuck around for all of this one, but not last week. So,
Are you lost for words?
but no, I'm not. So just trying to figure out where I want to start. First of all, did Rob know you had an interest in being a nun?
Oh, this was BR before Rob.
Before Rob, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was hoping it wasn't after. Anyways, and I wish Eddie Americana had given me the same advice before I gave my presidential talk. Things would have turned out a lot better, I think, that day. I have this big pad on my desk that I've had for years and years and years. I don't know if other people have it, but I like it mainly because it's nice and soft and I can write on it. I can put stuff down and I can write on it. And I also make all kinds of notes on this pad. And it was just coming back to me as I was sitting there listening to Karen. And I had heard her, both those speeches, obviously, her classification talk and her inaugural talk as president. And I can remember being extraordinarily impressed by them at the time. I'm impressed by almost all of our classification talks, not all of our president's talks, excluding Brad, of course. But there was a term I'd written on my pad that I look at occasionally, and I'd forgotten where it came from. And the term was surfeiting, or surfeit of profundities. And I always liked that. I don't know where I got it from, where it came to mind. And I'd forgotten where it came from until I was listening to Karen speak here. And that's when I wrote it down. It was when I got back to the office after hearing her. And this is after your president's talk, so I know you were combining both. but that's what we heard today. So rather than try and go through and say how much much has changed, but also how many of those truths still exist as guides in the 408 test, especially. Glad you emphasized that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Karen. Really enjoy these talks that we are getting with regard to the history of the Rotary Club of Chatham. We have many absolutely fantastic members, and I think we all are quite happy to be part of a group that has this kind of people behind us. So that pretty much covers everything that we've got for today. Next week, if we can either get Carl or maybe a 10-year-old to come out and figure out how our system works here, we'll hopefully have Ashish Sarkar speaking. I believe it's on Foundation, Jennifer. So we haven't figured that out. Ashish was hoping to be able to cross the border and come, but I think we got him in about a week too early for that process. So we'll be bringing him in by Zoom, and hopefully have him on the screen in here behind us. So that's it for the Good of Rotary. If there's anything else, we'll call it adjourned. I had Julia on a little bit earlier. She's gone right now, so we'll make sure that we get ourselves set up so that we can enjoy a little bit of her music next week. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you. And Allison, I just need to borrow you for a quick moment.